Good morning. Welcome to Brave Indigenous Conversations with Joan Jack. Those of you that are following me know that I've come to start the podcast with a reading of a short piece of work by Mickey Scott B. Jones that I just love, and I'm going to read that now. An invitation to a brave space. Together we will create brave space because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we all have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space, and we will work on it side by side. This morning, I have Susan Carlick joining me. She was here a minute ago. I hope she comes back. I'm going to talk a little bit about the podcast while I wait. Well, I'm going to message her. Come back. Come back. Okay. So I just messaged her to come back. Um, I was thinking this morning that I don't know. I don't know if it's a lack of self-love that that in myself or what it is, but I'm sure many of you can relate. I've never really felt like I belonged anywhere. And oh, she's texting. My internet is not cooperating. Okay, well, I'll just keep talking, I guess. So I was thinking this morning, I've struggled with the feeling that I don't belong. And yeah, that's been hard, and some of it I'm sure is justified, with childhood bullying and, being born into racist colonialism and not realizing it and then discovering that and feeling terrible about myself. Um, but this morning I was thinking, geez, I think I may have found my lane because one of the things for me has been I've always wanted to speak my mind. Um, and I've been, those of you that know me would think, Jesus, she's been holding back. I have been holding back. I, I'm concerned both within my culture to not offend people. I'm concerned with your approval, on my bad days. Um, and often I hold back. I hold back on what I'm really thinking. So that's what this space is about. It's about that we all need a space where we can be who we are and say what we think we need to say. Not that it's right, but that it's what we're thinking and what we're feeling. So I'm just going to try and text Susan again and see what's going on. Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna dictate so you hear what's going on. So are you trying again to get on? Yeah, she's having trouble with her internet. She was here for a second. Um, What else? I have a hard time just talking by myself. Oh, there she comes. I can see her coming now. It's starting to appear. There she is. Okay. I'm going to add. There we go. Can you hear me, Susan?
Yes, I
Today,
can.
okay, awesome. Okay, thank you for correcting your putting in your Tlingit name. So we'll start with you introducing yourself. Go.
So my Tlingit name is Kudir Karanik. My English name is Sue Carlick. I am, goodness, what am I, Joan? I'm a talker. I get involved in a lot of really cool projects about land and Aboriginal rights. And, I've hiked the trail with you guys a few times now. I love the Nakina call.
Susan was mentioning the Nakina call while I wait for her to try to get back, because Susan is a problem solver. So I have complete faith that she will figure this out and be back. As you can see, I'm wearing my sweatshirt this morning. You can all go to our website link there and order your own, support us. We get a little bit of money from that to run our center here. Um, Shared in Saskatoon. Awesome. Somebody's sharing the podcast. There comes Susan again. I can see her. I'm going to add her. Okay. I think she's coming back on. Oh, there you come. You're back. People in the podcast world generally edit out all these little technical glitches. And I have had that recommendation from a couple of people, pretty important people, that have said you need to cut that all out because you'll lose people. And then I've had other people say from the podcast world, no, that shit's real and keep it in there. This is how it really is. So what are your thoughts? Those of you, I've got like 6 people on here already, which is great. Oh my God, 6 of you are listening from all over. Somebody from Saskatoon is listening, from down in the United States. So what are your thoughts? Make a comment. Should I have this stuff edited out or not? What are your thoughts? 7, there's more people coming on listening. This is great. For those of you just joining us, we're having some technical difficulty this morning and we're just working through it, and I'm babbling and filling the airspace. Susan had Carlick was talking about the Nakina call, and she's actually been a big part of this for years. She messaged me. Hang on, let's see what she says. So I'm asking her if she could use her own data or come on without video. I don't know. We've never done this before. It's all new. So where was I? I was asking for some feedback. Somebody's saying it keeps it real. It's okay. Real is good. Okay, let's see what happens. Because it cost me money to have people edit this, and not a lot of money, but I didn't realize. You can start a podcast right from your phone without having to spend any money, but I wanted it to be professional to some degree. I mean, not that I'm very much of a professional, but I did want to have the technical support, and that costs me about $500 a month by the time the editing is done and the uploading is done and all of that is done. And I've still yet to learn how to upload it to YouTube, because if you're new to the podcast, this is episode 9, I believe. So there are 8 other amazing conversations on YouTube right now, where to find me, that you just go find Joan Jack on YouTube. And then on the YouTube, there's a live button. If you click the live button, all of the previous podcasts are there for you to listen to and share and enjoy. Okay, so the majority of the women, well, it's mostly women this morning that have commented, listening, saying, keep it real. Okay, so we will. So I digress. I was going all over the place. Susan mentioned I have my Nakina Call sweatshirt on, and Susan's been a big, it's interesting too. She introduced herself as Sue Carlick, and there she's trying to come again. She introduced herself as Sue Carlick, and for 30 years I've called her Susan. Okay, I'm going to add Susan to the stream. I hear my granddaughter. Awesome.
Yeah, that's the one that tells us God is alive.
Have her come and say hi, Sue.
Come say hi, baby. Look, come Joan is here.
Oh, put your pretty face on the
Here, we're in a
Oh, there you are. Hi, baby. How are you doing?
We're in another house.
You're in another house. That's awesome. It looks like a really nice house too, sweetheart.
Go brush your teeth now, okay?
I have to go brush my teeth.
Okay, you do that.
You could go back on the TV now too, baby. I switched the internet.
Aw. Oh, thank you so much, sis. So I've been asking there's 13 people watching now, which is great. Like, I'm like nobody in the middle of nowhere, and that there are people interested is so fantastic. So I was asking the people listening and watching, should I edit this all out? And everybody said, no, leave it. You're downriver. Take it as it is what it is, and keep it real. So because I have to pay an editor to get rid of all the stuff where you and I aren't actually in conversation. So I'm just going to leave it, save myself some money. Okay, let's just start over. Some new people have joined since you first introduced yourself. So let's just reset.
Okay. I'm just closing this door.
Okay. All right. I'd like to invite you to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Okay, Kudeta Karanik, Yuchaduasauk, Yanyedi Ayachat, Takukwan Ayachat, Khat Kudziti Wena Ka Atlen, Yagi We Shawat Achtu Klitzin Ka a bit nervous. So I just introduced my name, Kudir Kanik. My English name is Sue Carlick. I also said I'm a member of the Yanyeti clan and that I am Taku Kwan and I live in Waina, Atlin. That surprised me. Not that much Tlingit comes out of me most days. As Sue Carlick and in working, over the years, most of my life is around Aboriginal rights protection, protecting rights of Tlingits, doing my best to, build teams to help protect land. I've been involved in a lot of cool work, and I've also had a really dynamic life. Let's say, I've done a lot of things in my personal and professional life that I feel good about, and some of them I don't feel so good about. But I love being alive. Yeah.
Awesome. So, have you given any thought to Susan and I? So I'll just chime in here for listeners who don't know us. I finished law school in 91. And I believe were you on council that time? Were you on the interview team? Yeah, you were. Yeah. Okay. So in 1991, when Jenny Jack and I finished law school, I believe Susan Carlick was on council. Do you remember council? I don't want to make a mistake.
I was a member of the Chief and Council, and I was on council when we moved from the elected process to the Constitution. I was there for that, I think.
Yeah. Do you remember who else was on council that time? I feel like saying Gina.
Yeah, Uncle Sylvester for sure.
Yeah, he was a chief.
And was Jeananne on council?
I feel like she was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't remember, but it was an intense time, man.
Yeah. So I arrived in Atlin April 28th, 1991. And I had been interviewed over the phone by the chief and council for the lands and fisheries department manager, because I had articles back in Manitoba, but I didn't really feel like going to do that right then in that moment. I was, to tell my truth, my personal truth, I was running from my personal life. I had a second marriage that had failed, and I was like, oh my God, I can't go back to Manitoba. I got to do something else. And then Jenny and I were walking through the law school parking lot in April that spring, graduating, and I just said to her, not that we're going to talk about the Tack River Tlingit much in this conversation, but just the backstory of how I met Susan. And I just said to her, oh my God, the first blonde-haired, blue-eyed asshole that talks to me in the wrong tone of voice, from my perspective, I'm gonna like tell to F off, and I'm be fired. I'm not gonna. And then she looked at me. We were walking through the law school parking lot, the parkade at UBC, and she said, you should come work for us. And she said, we need to do land use planning. And I had never even heard of land use planning. I wasn't even in my wheelhouse at all. And then she said, and we want to do our own constitution. So this was way back in 91 that the Tack River Tlingit First Nation people were thinking about land use planning and doing their own constitution, which amazes me today. I mean, there are still many, many, many First Nations in Canada. There's like 624 registered, like Indian bands in Canada, that aren't even thinking about doing a constitution or a land use plan. And 30 years ago, your people were thinking about this, which just still, like I said, blows me away. And yeah, so anyways, I was interviewed over the phone, and Chief Sylvester Jack had one question. He said, "What is your view of Aboriginal rights and title?" That was it. He was asking that question 30 years ago too, which was so amazing. And I just babbled for like, I don't know, seemed like forever, like 15 minutes or something. And then when I was done, he said, "When can you be here?" And that was my interview. And so I met
Nice.
Susan, shortly after arriving, I'm sure, April 28th, 1991. And we're sisters now. We're like family now. We're so much more than friends. And we've been through, like you said, some really fun, exciting times and some really terrible times, which is basically life. I mean, no matter what kind of life we have, some of it's
Yeah.
great, some of it's not so great,
Mm.
no matter who you are or where you live. Yeah. So I asked Susan on short notice, to be a guest with me this morning, and I'm really thankful. So I just want to express my gratitude for stepping up
Oh, I love you,
on short
sis.
notice. So have you had any time in the last 24 hours to think about what we might talk about? Because over the 30 years, as becoming friends and sisters, we've talked about everything possible. So we have a great uh, number of things we could talk about.
Two things is occurring to me in this moment. I thought I'm just going to go with the flow. Like whatever
Oh,
she wants to talk about, we'll talk about. But I want to propose something
okay.
because you and I have been in training this past 4 days and a few days before
Oh,
around nonviolent communication or compassionate communication. And so maybe let's start off with the check-in in that model,
oh,
and then we'll see where we go.
what a great idea. You go first. You check in.
Okay. So observation, feeling, need, and I probably won't make a request, but I might because I don't know how many people are listening, but we'll see. So observation, my life is going through a big transition right now, and it's like I'm on this healing path that I didn't really plan, but I've always wanted. And so the feelings that are going on inside of me are, Michelle, Grandma really needs you to just cooperate. Remember? And I said, we'll go swimming after if it goes well.
Mommy, you put my tweeter in the truck.
And it's for after lunch. It's not for right now. Okay.
Tough negotiator coming up there.
Yeah,
She's got you in a vulnerable
really.
position, so she's like, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
job, Sue.
Okay. Feelings. So the feelings, excited, like God's up to something in my life that I don't understand. And I have this big trust and faith in Creator that's just growing, So, and really, like just in today, focusing on now. And here I am, blessed to be with my sister. So lots of my needs are being met. I don't even know what we're going to talk about, but I know like time with you is purposeful. And that's one of my needs, is that I'm doing things that matter, that have purpose. The other need I have, and I just learned this in the workshop yesterday from hearing somebody else say it, I have a real need to be seen and heard. And so that need is being met all the time when I'm with you. Like I know that need is a need that's going to be met. Other needs that come up, like my need for safety is really being met now with this new place and this new thing my granddaughter and I are up to, creating a new life that isn't based out of Atlin right now. Yeah, I think that's it for me, sis. I love you.
Okay. I love you too. And you had no requests this morning then. Isn't that something? Maybe you could request your internet to stay good.
Yeah, no kidding, eh? I'm on my hotspot connection. That's how I got connected.
Okay. Okay. So in the nonviolent communication model by Marshall somebody, Marshall
Right.
Rosenberg.
Yeah.
Yeah. That model, for those of you that are not familiar with it, is about 25 maybe years old. And I think I could, this, I'm not saying this is right. How it occurs for me is that, his goal was to bring peace into the world, more peace into the world, and to help people learn how to move through their personal conflicts and professional conflicts, any kind of conflicts, by separating our personal experience of things from actual feelings and needs, which before the training, I had no real idea. So the model is based on what you observe, making an observation, sharing your authentic feelings, what you're feeling exactly in this moment, and then sharing your needs and making a request. And so I had to, for those of you watching on video, I had to actually print out the chart, because one of the conversations Susan and I had was we were in agreement that we probably had about 4 or 5 feelings, and there's like, I don't know, 70 on here. And I'm like, what? That's a feeling? And most of the things I thought were feelings weren't even feelings. I feel betrayed. I feel abandoned. Those are not feelings. Those are judgments. Okay, so I'll do my check-in now. I just wanted to give the listeners a background to what we were doing.
Yeah.
So what I'm observing is that we are having technical difficulty in this moment doing the podcast. And my feeling about that is, I better check my chart. I have to check that everybody at camp is laughing at me to see if I'm, because I got to check. Okay, yeah, it's here. I'm anxious. Like I have anxiety. Like I'm anxious about that. But I'm delighted. I'm delighted that I'm with you here. Not but, and I'm delighted I'm with you here. Yeah, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what we do for the next 45 minutes or so. I have a need for, what do I have a need for? I have a need for, I don't have to look at the chart. I have a need for connection, and a strong need for connection. And I also have a need for, to be seen and heard as well. A strong need to be seen and heard, which I was sharing in the beginning when you were struggling to get back on, that, which is kind of what the universe has led me to with this podcast, because I don't feel like I fit in anywhere. I don't feel like I fit in anywhere. And I've had that experience since a child. And so I've learned through other therapy and stuff that comes from other things as well. But in my core, I'm in a 12-step program, and one of the little sayings is, we're all dying of terminal uniqueness. In my core, I feel I have a need to be terminally unique. So that causes some trouble for me, learning to be one among many and that sort of thing. But I'm finding a space through this podcast where I can be brave and express myself and meet my own needs. And I think that's what the whole model is about too, is taking a responsibility for identifying my own needs and having those needs met through requests. Yeah. So my request to you this morning is, if you lose signal again, just keep trying to come on and I'll talk about whatever. And we're going to, just like a 12-step meeting, we're going to end right at the hour. We're going to be done right at the hour, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, what next, Sue? Because you were brought up the training.
I missed the last part there.
That's okay. I was saying, so you suggested we talk about the training that we did around nonviolent communication and restorative justice systems for Indigenous people. So what do you want to share about that?
The biggest learnings for me was around the idea of, and I really like the term compassionate communication. The idea of constructing or revitalizing systems that restore peace is so attractive to me. Like, I am just so, yes, that's possible. It's how our nation lived before. Yeah, we were, anyway. So the idea that this model and this way of communicating is based in compassion is really like mind-blowing thought, because I've always been an agenda-driven person. Like, if you just listen to me long enough, you're going to agree. So let's just go do it anyway, like is how I've approached my life. And so the idea that we start with compassion for ourselves, compassion for other people, and bring that into the conversation, and that's what is the foundation of the conversation, is really going to be different for me, and I actually feel so much hope because the model actually calls on me to be different. It doesn't mean I got to change how other people are behaving, And so that's some of the big stuff that comes up for me from work.
Yeah. I'll just jump in while you're thinking some more. So the compassion for others piece, how I heard the training was that in terms of the compassion for others, specifically compassion for ourselves for sure, but compassion for those with whom we are in conflict was what I heard, what was my big takeaway. And I'm relatively skilled at that. Like I'm able to, I know that because people have said that to me. Oh my God, you're always so able to see the good in the situation about somebody else's behavior. I've had, I don't know, 3 or 4 people say that to me in the last even few years, that when something's happening that's really horrible, and yet I can see why the other person or people are acting the way they're acting. I can see that. It doesn't mean I agree necessarily with what they're doing, but it helps me. Finding that compassion for others helps me reduce my own anxiety and fear, and meets my need for peace. I have a great need for peace. Imagine somebody with such a big mouth as me having a need for peace. But I have a deep need for peace. Um, my big takeaway was around the definition of violence. I wrote it down. Hang on, I'm going to get the book here. Because I was sharing in my sharing, I was sharing that I was struggling with, how violence, like everything is violent then, nonviolent communication. Like, what am I just supposed to sit with not even talking? And I can't find where I wrote it down. Anyways, what she said, what the NVC certified trainer, her name's Jo, what she said was that I don't remember it word for word, but what my takeaway was that she said violence is defined as action that results in harm to others because that's what you intended. So I mean, there's a lot of freedom in that, but there's a lot of room to bullshit in that too. Oh, well, I didn't mean to hurt you. You know, sorry about that. And so if you need to talk to Michelle, go ahead and we can keep on. No, you're good.
She's okay. She's just telling me she's impatient to go swimming.
Oh, I don't blame her. Tell her we're almost done. We're halfway. We're halfway, honey. Yeah, we're halfway. Okay, so but that's caused me to think of other things, like when I was in law school. Like all of the white law is based on intention. Like I didn't mean to do it. So in criminal law, and I'm not a criminal law lawyer, but for example, they call it mens rea. Like you have to have the intent to commit the act, to be responsible for the act. And that's a problem for us as Indigenous people. So this model, I think, needs to be examined at a deeper level around how it fits in our worldview. Because what I was always saying to people in law school when I was there was, look, it doesn't matter in Indian country, from my understanding, it doesn't matter whether you opened the door and broke my nose because you didn't see me on the other side of the door, or you opened the door and broke my nose and you meant it. It doesn't matter. The fact is, you broke my nose. You broke my nose. So you're responsible for my nose, whether broken nose, whether or not you intended. So I feel like I feel like there's a whole bunch more thinking that needs to be done around the model and how violence is defined. Because if it's going to be just limited to intent, well, then I'm off the hook. I'm off the hook because I never intend, honest to God, I never intend to hurt anybody. But there are days when I go through life being me, and I'm like a goddamn moose inside the living room, and I hurt a whole bunch of people, and even that wasn't my intention, you know. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you.
Nice, nice.
You're thinking about that or anything else?
The other thing, I guess, that you know, the idea of peace, and healing. Like healing has to happen for peace to be experienced by more people, you know, um, for longer periods of time, and that awareness, like how do we bring this healing, this communication model to more people? I loved hearing our young people say, well, we just have to practice it and model it. Be the change you want to see in the world, Sue. I was like,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and really aware that that is, in fact, the answer,
yeah.
and so, and then really clear that there has been so much more to my healing. Like there are so many things going on to support me to get stronger and kinder. And, for me, getting sober was a big part of that, is a big part of that, and maintaining my recovery. Um, Wanting to be in relationship with my family more, like with any luck, I'll get to come to the camp in the next little while. Things like that, like the idea that my safety and my well-being doesn't come from out there. Like
No.
I actually have to generate it and have it displayed in my life. I have to do it. And so taking different actions and, like I just came off of a conversation with a person and he's going to try to get a receipt for me for a vehicle I bought some years ago, and somebody's trying to screw me over about it. And we just got to a really good agreement, like him going to try to get the receipt. That's my last attempt. After
Okay.
this, if it doesn't work, I'm just going to let it go now. Like
Yeah.
I can't just like, I don't need to be caught up in this.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, that felt really good. Like I knew that was what I was thinking, but when we each said it, like after this, I probably have a little bit of work to do, but it's time to let it go and
Hmm.
just be done with it. And so, that ability to move from, a conflict about something, trying to resolve it, and then say, okay, I'm done with that now. There's compassion in that for
Uh,
me,
uh,
for me, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't have to be right. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I can just say, you know what? I made a mistake here and I got screwed over and now it's time to move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wasn't even available to me a few months ago, or maybe more than a few months ago, but the last couple of years,
Yeah. Yeah.
getting better at that. Like, I don't have to be in this fight. If you're going to be in a fight, you're going to fight with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said something that really pulled a feather inside me in a good way, about this model again. And somebody, Carrie, who's a really good, strong supporter of the work we do, said you need to create your own model. Well, yeah, that's actually what we're doing, Carrie. We're examining these models, various models. Those of us that are interested, and everyone's welcome when the work is posted in our community. The opportunities, anybody's welcome from our community. So those who show up are looking at these questions. And about the model again, when you said, I don't need to be caught up in this, what came in my mind instantly was, do I have a need for conflict? Do I have a need to be in conflict? Like yeah, I got to think about that, eh? Then I went to my chart and then I looked, okay, under needs, no negative things on here. And I think in order to get to that place of healing you're talking about, it helps me anyway to identify my own negative needs. Like when I first sobered up and got on recovery trail and all of that, one of the first things that I got present to was my need to be right, my need to be right, my need to not just be right, but I had like a major need to be involved in drama, you know, like I think there's in a model that we would develop for ourselves, there would have, or I'd like to hear what the trainers, the qualified people in this model would say about this. Like, where does reality fit in? You know, that getting real about what my life is based, whatever this is what I believe, not model thing. Whatever I'm experiencing today is based on what I have defined as my needs today. Because independent Disney, I own myself. There's no getting away from that in my worldview. That I am the owner of Joan Jack. That's it. Nobody else. I can be influenced from outside, but for sure, I'm the owner of myself. That's how I was raised. You own yourself. So whatever I'm experiencing, both positive and negative, is based on my needs because I'm creating it. So, huh, maybe I have a need to be a victim. I know I've identified that one for years and worked, and it's like that peeling of the
But
onions.
even that, like the feeling like you need to be a victim might actually be a need to be seen.
Yeah, yeah,
Like it all comes back to some positive need, in my view,
okay,
where, or survival, like the survival instincts and stuff driving so much of our behaviors, and so many, like this fear, like somehow we're going to be killed, like this situation is nasty, but the need itself is a positive thing, like we're trying to survive. And
huh,
so I think, even that need for drama, that's probably related to, for me, the seen and heard thing again.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like I just want to be in the mixed.
yeah, yeah. So that conversation there that you just took us through, where you look at the need on the surface and how it appears to be negative, uh, you're saying, go deeper, 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 and identify. But I still would like to pose the question to Joe and those people in the model: are there only positive needs? Because one time, my husband Watt said, I'm his biggest fan. 30 years we've been married, and he's so profound, and he doesn't even know he's profound. Like, he says shit that like the whole world should hear. But he's the kind of communicator that you've got to be listening to him for a long time to hear the little nuggets of gold. You've got to learn. I've had to learn to listen to him the way he speaks, because he doesn't conform. you know Agenda, what agenda? Like, oh my God, all that introduction popped that thought out of my head. Oh, I know what. So there was this situation. For those of you that don't know, Brian and I were foster parents for like 25 years in our community and fostered many children. And social workers run through our community as often as I change underwear, which is actually, like, it's a lot. It's terrible. The social workers, oh, we're going to stay. This is the way, and then they're gone. So this new social worker had showed up in town and had been just so rude to Brian and I. And I had it. I had it. And I made such a big fuss writing emails and letters and whatever. And they were apologizing on the email. I said, no, in our culture, you come right here and you sit at our table and you apologize to our faces. You're not going to get away. I said, I want that social worker here, and I want the biggest boss you can find above that social worker. I was saying to the team leader, the regional team leader. So the ADM actually came and with the social worker to our table. And then Brian was sitting where he always sits there at the table, and the big shot was sitting at the other end of the table. And that was all context. This is the part that he said that I thought was so profound. He said to her, some people see me as negative. Some people see me as negative. So I think I'll be negative and you be positive. And together, he said, we'll make the spark that's needed for change. You know? So in the model, if we drill down to the positive only all the time, where does his thinking fit in? Where, conflict is not a bad thing if we move through it. It's not a bad thing. It's just that we need to move through it with each other, with those that we are in conflict with, or it never gets resolved. Or in Landmark, we say complete, you don't get complete on things. And one of the reasons our relationship has survived 30 years is because we're pretty good on, like, when you and I have conflict, we get complete, you know. Not, sometimes it takes us longer, because we're too worried, we don't want to hurt each other, we have to be careful, or whatever the reason. But I can't even really think of much where I don't feel complete with you on
Mhm.
all. And so that getting complete and getting to the listening to each other's point of view is so critical. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think about what Brian said about the positive and the negative and the spark of change?
What popped up was the the last few days again, where at the beginning the woman said, conflict arises really because there's a problem that wants to be solved. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that, like, there's a problem coming up because it needs to be solved. And it's like, wow. And that's what Brian's talking about, the positive and negative. If there's conflict, we have to figure it out and, make that spark and talk and make some more sparks and talk. And then we figure out what it is that actually needed to be solved. I don't
Yeah,
know. Yeah.
yeah. So what we've got about 15 minutes left. So what else would you like to talk about?
Oh, I so wish to walk to Nakina. I
Oh,
so wish to walk to Nakina.
oh.
Maybe we could get organized to hike out or something. But
Well, just
uh,
to let you know, Brian just he announces things too. He just announces things. So he said the other day, "I'm walking out, Joan," and so he won't be doing that till mid-August though. But if you want to walk home, you could walk with him.
oh yeah, I have to come out. Like, yeah. Anyway, it probably
Okay.
won't work out. But I'm thinking about that a lot. And when you asked me what else do you want to talk about, it's always like our land. Oh my
Uh,
God, it's so beautiful right now. With all the leaves out and the good warm weather and everybody's running around half naked. I love summer because we don't have to wear that much clothes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. I can't wait to get to Nakina. How many salmon are in the smoker?
I think about 6 or 7. Just they've been really here since like yesterday, day before. Your son's caught most of them. The fish just love him. He's like, shit to a blanket. Those fish just love him. Yeah. So,
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
yeah. But it'll be, well, obviously, we'll be catching, as many as we can and drying them and putting them up. And we always say we're going to bring them home and eat them all winter, but we actually leave the river with a tiny little box because we eat everything that we make.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Could you talk
The
a little bit?
other
Oh, go ahead. There's a lag. You go ahead.
the other thing that I'm thinking about right now is, Dr. Patricia Vickers and the healing work on trauma, and what a difference she's made for me already. Like after I did those, she was here for that 2 weeks. I had 3 sessions with her, and like I know that I am changed by the
Mm,
work that I've done with her.
yeah.
And it's like that with the restorative systems work too that we've been through this last week. It's like I know I'm changed forever. And so I'm a little bit disoriented in the world now. Like, oh my God, how do I live? Because I
Yeah.
learned all this new stuff.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, like, how to keep the momentum going to support people who really want this. How do we keep this momentum going? My little voice said, keep doing the work. It's that
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Practice these principles in all our affairs, eh? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always the same. The answer's
Yeah.
always the same.
Let's
Huh.
do the work.
Yeah, do the work. Can you talk a little bit about what the Nakina call means to you, has meant to you, and means to you today?
Sure. Um, well, certainly, when you were starting to call up years ago, and the great success I believe that you had in establishing your family's home, on the Nakina, it's one of the things about clingedness, that I'm most proud of. Like, I love that you and your husband have, over the years, made such a commitment to having a place on the land where people like me and my children, my family, can come to connect with land, connect with the love that you and Brian have there, connect with all the goings on. Like, when I'm in your camp, I feel so much like a member of a team who's up to something extraordinary,
Oh,
and so every experience that I've had at the Nakina Call has, it's kind of like a healing ceremony for me. Every time I go, I come back thinking big thoughts, like I want to be up to something bigger than I've been doing before. It's like almost like a vision quest or something, because I don't get to come for that long. Like, over the years, the way my career has been, I get to come for a few days and then I leave. And so I just have so much respect for that you and Brian stay and stay and stay until, as long as you can, until you can't afford it anymore. And then you come back and go back, to this real world and life and incomes and, all of that. But the fact that you have made your life there with your husband and that is your home, I love that. And then that you're just there welcoming people. You can't see my arms, but my arms are open wide. Like, you're just there waiting for people to come and have whatever healing experience they need. Um, the other thing that I really love about the Nakina Call is the food. Like, we eat so good when we're there. I really feel like I'm just like so special at every meal, because I know, like, our family cooperates to get meals prepared, but there's something so much more nutritious. Like, it's so much easier to just be and enjoy food and be at the camp. Like, even if I don't have an appetite, when I get to the call, I feel hungry because I know I'm going to eat good food, Um, the other part, that I love so much about the Nakina Call, like back when I was doing work for the nation to stop that road that was trying to be built,
yeah.
we walked in there with you guys.
Mm,
Brian led that one hike I was on. There were like over 20 of us, and
mm,
like, I think 15 of them were kids, and us hiking in. And I just, um, getting to the river, getting to the place when we walk in, there's just nothing better than that. Like, I see different people just break out crying, like they can't believe they made it. And then there's others of us that just walk right to the water, make offerings, do our prayers, do all that. And just the ritual and the importance of the rituals that we have learned because we relate at Nakina, you know,
mm,
um, the difference that the Nakina call. So back in those fights, you know, I bet you remember this too, but there was times where I would send my kid or kids into
Yeah,
you because I had
yeah,
so much work to do, you know, and they'd stay with you for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and
months.
I
Yeah,
could do the land protection work, and you guys were doing the land protection work, you know, and looking after my kids.
yeah,
And so there's just so many things that I love about the Nakina call.
yeah,
And I absolutely believe that it has been, you have been, Brian has been, your whole family has been one of the fundamental things that helps us kind of pivot in the right direction,
mm,
you know, to the land, to the things we love, to living a peaceful life, like all those things. Not gonna call has supported me, and even wanting to learn about it, you
mm,
know. Yeah, I don't know what else I'd say. I just feel so blessed that the call is there, and I
mm.
want to do to help it thrive. I love
Thank
that my son's there working his bag off to make you lots of lumber, and it's just
you.
very cool to see, you know, those kids who were running around camp catching salamanders and scaring me and all that. Now they're milling lumber and building buildings. It just blows my mind. Okay, I'll stop. I love you.
Ah. Lynn says, quick question. Can you two talk about the relationship of your children and the land?
Yeah, well, just that whole thing that my son has gone from, you know, catching salamanders and now he's catching salmon and doing all that. And also is the lead man on running the mill. Like my son has grown into a very skilled person. And when he's having trouble in his own life, he wants to come to Nakina Call, you
Yeah,
know. And now, because you were so supportive and just doing that with him, he does feel comfortable to come back. And now he's giving back to
yeah,
the call. You know, he's a grown man. He's going to be 24 this year.
yeah,
And the fact that that spot, like that place in his territory, calls to him, he can listen to the call and go. Yeah, I'm using the word call. I
yeah,
didn't even
yeah,
realize it,
yeah,
but it calls to him, you know,
yeah,
and he goes there and he's sustained in a way that he can work hard and give back and all of
yeah,
that. And so, um, with my grandbaby, you know, like she loves Nakada, she loves being there, but she's scared of bugs. And every time, like we go there and she's screaming, freaking out, and after a few days she calms down and you know the bugs
yeah,
bite her and she's less terrified. And
yeah,
so just nurturing them to have a relationship with their land at this young age, like the, you know, the kids you see out there holding the big those fish eggs are so huge this year. I was like, is that a chunk of salmon or is that fish egg? I had to zoom in because I thought it was eggs, but it's half as big as Mia, you know.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so, but all of that, it's like those are the future land protectors. I have no doubt about it.
yeah, yeah,
When I'm gone, it's going to be the Mias, the Nicholases, the Shirleys, the
yeah,
Josephs, the Lonnies, the Alicias. Like
yeah,
those are the people who are going to be saying the things that we taught them to know.
yeah. Amber, yeah, like totally. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what you were thinking about, Lynn, and we've run out of time, but you know, for sure those 20 kids that walked down with us more than once back in the late 90s, you know, they're like Gaetaca is the prime example of somebody who was walking down, and then her family has a camp just down from us, so she would go and stay with her mom if her mom was there. um but yeah, they're taking over, and this year, you know, our son's coming in a week ahead of us and setting up camp like that. Succession planning, like this is our succession planning in action, you know.
Yeah.
uh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna end with this. I remember when I was working way long ago in Lands and Fish for you guys, and Melvin Jack was the spokesperson back then, and this insurance salesperson had showed up in the community just randomly. I don't know. And he was trying to sell life insurance to the nation for employees and stuff. And then he was saying to Cockwaith is his Tlingit name. He was saying to Cockwaith, um, you have life insurance? He said, yeah, I do. And I was thinking, he doesn't have life insurance. And so, but I was listening, and then the guy said, "Oh, what's the name of the company, or whatever?" And he said, "Jerry, Johnny, and Joey," and that's his son. Oh my God! So, do you have some last words? And then I have some last words. I tend to try to close with.
Just, I guess, how much I, that looking after the land and being connected to our land, like that is the most important thing about being Tlingit. Looking after our land as an extension of, like, I'm an extension of the land. Ooh, this is deep. That's why I have to be compassionate to me, because I'm an extension of the land, like I am my land. And so if I can love my land so deeply, I ought to be able to love myself that deeply. I can feel when I drive into Atlan, the mountains are happy to see me. Michelle said to me the other day, because I asked her, I said, Michelle, can you feel our land be happy to see you? And we're driving in your big truck, and my sister was there with me, and Michelle says, oh, yes, Grandma. You know what the land just said to me? I said, what did it say to you? She said, oh, Michelle, where have you been?
Oh,
yeah, I'll leave it at that.
So amazing. So amazing. Huh. Okay. So I love humor. And I've rarely met an Indigenous person who doesn't love humor. So when I started this, I quickly realized that a big part of Brave Indigenous Conversations with Joan Jack is about the earrings, because I have like a serious beaded earring addiction. And so I brought down a set of earrings to feature each week from different artists. And this week I'm wearing these are the work of Susan Carlick. And I feel bad I can't remember her Tlingit name. Do you remember her? Yiskachutlatsine. Yeah, so these are hers. I asked her to make them, and she also made me a red pair. I wanted like an Ojibwe flower, and so this is what she made for me. And yeah, Jean is an amazing beater, and she does this kind of like, I don't know, it's like a graph style where she makes things, and so it's really beautiful. So I featured our sister's earrings this week because you were coming. When I was looking in the bag, I thought, oh, I got to wear Jean's earrings. So thank you so much, sis. And just stay on, and we'll have a little chat at the end. I'll end the broadcasting. Okay. See you all next.